Well, hello there. I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome. We are here with Doug Villhard, who is the academic director for entrepreneurship at Washington University's Olin Business School. I want to wish you a good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're logging in from. We are here to talk about our exciting pitch competition, which is coming up. It's a chance for you to win $50,000 for your business idea. No strings attached. I'm just going to go over rules before we get to Doug. The contest is set up in 3 rounds. You submit your idea in an online form, which is open on our site. And the deadline for that is January 7th of the new year. There will be teams that will be then asked to submit a 2-minute pitch video. Finalists will be chosen from that group. The 3 top teams will then present in front of judges on March 3rd. And then the winner will get a $50,000 prize to get them started on their idea. Now, of course, one of the most asked questions that we're getting from students is, how good is my startup idea? How do you know if it's even competitive? Well, today, Doug's going to walk you through his 5-point litmus test. We're also going to talk about previous winners of the contest, so you get an idea of how successful your idea might be. Doug, what do you say?
Yeah, hey, John, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we're excited to partner with you on this competition. We've been doing it at WashU for a while now, just internally among students at WashU. So we're excited to spread it out nationally, if you will, and accept more applicants. And I do this little workshop, John, if you will, with our students about, what's a good idea. So it's my pleasure to do that today for your audience as well. And we can launch into that or talk more about the contest, or what would you prefer that I do?
Let's go through in a little more detail the contest itself. Okay. So I mentioned the first deadline, and that's just to fill out the online form, but it's really easy, isn't it?
Yep. So by January 7th, all you have to do is go to this URL here, or this QR code here, or search for it on your website, on Poets and Quants website. And all you have to do is answer a couple questions about yourself, who you are and such, and then what problem is your business solving? What's unique about your solution? What differentiates you? A little bit about your market, sort of a couple other basic questions. So, John, it's not really any more onerous than just the sort of basic questions that you would answer if someone was talking to you about your business. So we make it really simple to
it would take under 10 minutes to even fill it out, right?
Absolutely, that's right. This should be, if you really have a business idea, these should be these questions. You should have the answer to these questions ready to go already. So that's the first phase. And then after that,
we should also mention, Doug, who is eligible? Because that's an important criteria.
Yeah, great question. So it's anyone who is currently a student, a graduate student, or an undergraduate student, or anyone interested in pursuing a graduate business, or a graduate business degree. So those are the folks that are eligible. So if you already have your MBA, I'm sorry, you're not eligible. But if you're under that, if you will, including still working on one, you are eligible.
Right. And if you have no intention of applying to graduate business school in the next couple of years, don't apply either, right?
Yeah, not that we can really monitor that, but yes, yeah, that's right.
Great. And then the first cut, we're going to pick how many teams as kind of finalists.
Yeah, so from the entries that we get from January 7th, we'll then pare it down to 10 or 15 or so that we'll ask to do a 2-minute video, kind of sort of an audition tape, if you will, talking about their business. So that then, John, we can whittle it down to 3 that will invite
that's a classic elevator pitch, right? Pretty much.
Classic elevator pitch. It's actually answering the same kind of questions that you do initially here as well, but chance for us to see you and see your energy level and to learn a little bit more about your business. Because what you're really doing, John, is you're auditioning, if you will, to be in our final, to be in the final 3 that will be a little Shark Tank-ish in the sense that you'll be live on our campus with John and with judges, and that should be a fun show and a neat
I can't wait for
opportunity.
that.
Yeah.
And Doug, I should also add that, look, even if you don't win, if you get to the stage where we're picking the 10 or 15 and asking for an elevator pitch from you, we're going to be writing about the contestants and seeking comment from our audience. So you're going to get publicity, but it's going to help you one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely, and feedback too. You know, it's our pleasure to, especially when you get into that top 15 or so, it's our pleasure to say why you got picked and maybe why you didn't, and something to work on or to think about, you know, before you start your graduate degree as well.
Yeah, and that's a real plus because you're going to get some very important, solid advice from Doug and other people who really are experts in entrepreneurship. So that's going to be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes in these contests, you know, it's one thing to win. Obviously, the chances are low, if you will, but it's a high opportunity that you're going to learn something. And that's what I think is most important from these opportunities.
Now, Doug, you have a little bit of a litmus test. We want to get into that because it might help guide some of the contestants to shape their idea and to make sure that they submit the best possible idea for consideration.
Yeah. So let me walk you through that. And John, you're welcome to interrupt me at any point and ask a question. We'll kind of have a conversation about it. But let me introduce myself for a second. So I'm the academic director
Absolutely.
for entrepreneurship at WashU and professor of practice. And just a little bit about me. I started my career at Disney, which was a really fun place to get started, especially given my age. It was when the internet was getting started. So I was able to pick up some tremendous skills there. And I wasn't there for very long, just a couple of years before I got the entrepreneurial bug. And one of the early companies I started is a company called Max Preps, which many in the audience may know. It's basically the ESPN of high school sports, if you will. And it's our pleasure to start that company. And it's owned by CBS today, #1 high school sports site in the world. So it's fun to start it. It's fun to watch my own kids grow up and be in it as well. And really fun when I'm in college, have people raise their hand if they've heard of this before. So that's neat too. After that, I started a company called Second Street, which helps television, newspaper, radio stations do contests and promotions. And it's public, you know, so we sold it for a bunch of money in January of this year. You're welcome to look that up. So, but you know, John, I was trying to live my life in this sort of learn, earn, return, if you will. And I always wanted to teach. So it's my pleasure to get back into that. And not only do I teach, but I also have a VC firm as well, where I often invest in many of my students' businesses. So these are 3 businesses, for example, that have come out of WashU. Adalo is a no-code app where you can make software without knowing software. Hum are devices that go on train cars to do among many things, including just make sure the doors stay shut so we don't spill coal all over the place. And Honeymoon Chocolates is a really exciting new chocolate company that's launched here in St. Louis and across the country in Whole Foods and other. Instead of using sugar, they use raw honey. So
Wow.
I don't know if I call it healthy, John, but I call it healthier, if you will.
Yes,
healthier,
exactly.
if you will, approach. So now WashU's a neat place, but and our students are awesome, but it's also amazing the investors that want to have picked up on the national recognition of what we do and want to invest in our startup. So it's fun to sit there. So when I first started teaching, John, this was me, honestly, me on day one. We should have cropped it a little better. I literally have elbow patches on there and a pipe, if you will. But I'm not up there for like 1 minute introducing myself. And this question comes across, hey, professor, what do you think of my startup idea? And this is a very popular question, you might imagine, for entrepreneurship professors. So I was thinking to myself, what's the best way to answer that? So we sort of came up with this litmus test, if you will. So if you want to test whether your startup idea is good, you might consider what I'm about to show you. And it's not whether it will be good, actually, it's whether it will be outrageously. So for an idea to be outrageously successful, I'm going to make the argument that it needs 5 things. And then, John, I'm going to test it. I've got some companies that people have heard of, and we'll run it against my test. Okay. So the first one, ask yourself, is, are you solving a significant problem for a large number of customers? Okay, and there's nothing wrong with a niche. There's nothing wrong with something small, but I'm saying if you want this to be outrageously successful, and honestly, most venture capital firms need it to be outrageously successful to even consider an investment in you. So it's different between a small business and something that is international and really takes over the world. Is how big of a problem are you solving? Talk about that, all of these, in just a second. The second one is in a market that is growing. It is very hard to start a company, very hard to get customers, and then very hard if your customers are dying off or disappearing at the same time. So to catch a wave of something that is growing early is very important for you to consider. So hopefully your mind's starting to spin right now as you apply this against your own ideas. Third one is that you have some kind of personal familiarity to the market. So for example, all the companies I've started, I'll never start a company that helps oil rigs on the Gulf of Mexico. Not because I'm against oil exploration or the Gulf of Mexico or anything, or environment. Those I'm for those things. But those things, that's not my reason. The reason is I've never been on one before. I've never been on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico, and that immediately sets me back, because if you can't be a customer of your own product, it just is very challenging as you continue to grow it. The fourth one is that whatever your solution is, it be unique, hard to replicate, ever evolving, and scalable. And sometimes in business, we talk about having a moat around our idea, which is a concept of think of a castle with a moat around it. Because once you've established that this can work, competitors come running at you. So how defensible are you? And then the last one is hard to do all these other things. And then it's so hard to get a customer that it is much better if you can create a relationship that's recurring with them. So I get you as a customer, I'm solving your problem, and you keep coming back to me. Same customer comes back to me over and over again. Okay, so you're saying to yourself, okay, does my business idea apply to these five or not? And I think you'll find it's actually pretty difficult. And I'll show you an example. Have you heard of this company, John? McDonald's, right? So I'm pretty sure everybody.
Oh yeah,
has
company I
around
actually
the world.
like. Okay, I happen to have nothing against fast food, and I think McDonald's is the best.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree. So look at this, for example. So solve a significant problem. This is interesting. A lot of people think it has to do with hunger or food, but I would argue, John, the problem that McDonald's solved is time, actually, is time and efficiency. So are we, as humans, do we have more time than we used to or less? I think the argument is less, right? So I think that is a big problem, and I think that market is growing. Minivans, especially racing around, taking kids places. I think that there's definitely a market there. Founder with personal familiarity. I don't know how much you guys know about the McDonald's brothers, but they were very much into this with stop watches and everything else, trying to make hamburgers as efficiently as possible. But then you get to number 4, and even something as successful as McDonald's starts to have an issue with my test. Unique, hard to replicate, ever evolving. John, is McDonald's the only place that you can get fast food?
Oh my goodness. Well, they were the forerunner, but certainly the competition has really evolved.
That's exactly right. And if you look at recurring customer model, that they are positioned in such a way that you will go there more than once in your life, but you don't have to. You're not required to. It's not a subscription service. So I bring this up because you start to realize something right here, John, with my model, with my test, very hard to achieve all 5. In fact, nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So what it really is you don't necessarily need your business to hit all 5. You just need to figure out where it's the weakest against this and try to improve it. Okay, so try to improve it. So if you look at another one like Netflix, for example, okay, solve a significant problem, boredom, escapism. You're right. I mean, I think these are things that are going to need to be entertained. These are things that are always going to happen. Escape from our lives, if you will. And in a market that is growing, absolutely, absolutely. And founder with personal familiarity. At the time, the founder is very focused on shipping CDs, if you will, and related to the entertainment industry. And then again, you get to number 4. You know, John, is Netflix the only streaming service available?
No, but they were the breakthrough one.
That's right. That's right. But over time, everyone else has just been taking their market share since they've launched. And then number 5, they do a really good job with that, right? Really good job with that, and that we're gonna continue paying. They're gonna, now they have A-list actors coming out with content, and they're doing their best on all 5, but not perfect, right? And then you look at someone like Starbucks, and I won't do this one, but you all can apply it against there as well. And I would think it's interesting, the problem that Starbucks solves, right? You might say it's like energy, if you will. I would argue in my class it's addiction. I think they have to really think about that when they're in the boardroom, whether or not the new thing that they're launching has caffeine or not. Because if it does have caffeine, go down to number 5. We come back over and over and over again for these things, right? But still challenging. And then look at my company. Okay, my company is Second Street, helping television, newspaper, radio stations do contests and promotions. Okay, and it's public. This company I sold for 30 million in January, John. Okay, and that's exciting, right? That doesn't sound terrible, right?
Not at all.
Stretch.
Wow,
that's right. But it wasn't a billion. It wasn't a billion, right? And if you look at this for a second, does it solve a big problem for these guys? Yes, but are there very many television, newspaper, radio stations? No. And if you look at number 2, are they growing? No. There's actually less television, newspaper, radio stations than when I started. So this particular business, John, it's like going the wrong way on an escalator, if you will.
But in a way, I would argue that makes it more competitive and therefore more in need of the tools that you are providing.
That's absolutely right. And that helped with number 1, 3, 4, and 5. But number two is why this company has a limited potential, because it's not growing, right? So if the escalator is going down and I'm trying to go up, I have to work extra hard, John, extra hard. And I do all this stuff to get a customer and to get them in, get them up, get them running. And then that customer disappears for market conditions that have nothing to do with me, if you will. So these are things to think about up front. And these are things that VCs are running through their head when they're considering you're investing in you, because the more challenging that can be, the more challenging it can be for them to see a big return as well. And then this is interesting. When you look at Google search, for example, you start to hit all 5, okay? And you're like, why is that happening? And here's the big secret, John, against my test here. All I've really done here is define a monopoly. Okay, so all I've really done here is define a monopoly, because I think to myself, what is a monopoly? It's someone who absolutely hits all 5 of these and is completely defensible, all the way to the point where it probably should be broken up. Okay, now I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing for that.
The funny thing is, it's contrarian thinking, because you would think that the best companies in capitalism are simply the most competitive. But the best companies are those that are, in fact, monopolies, because their profit margins are protected.
That's right. They're more than competitive. They're not just the big dog, they're the only dog, if you will. And so my point is not that I'm trying to necessarily create more of those, but not that I'm not either. I'm trying to get you to think big early on, trying to ask you which one of these 5 are you the weakest against? And then I'm asking you, what can you do about it? Especially now that you're in an idea phase. And if you can't do something about it, it could be time to let go of that idea. And sometimes, John, at like a dinner party, I'll say I'm an entrepreneurship professor, and people will say, oh, so your job is to tell people that their babies are ugly. That's what they'll say to me. And I will say, I have never once told someone that their baby was ugly or their idea was bad. But I have put this forth to let them figure out where their challenges are and to encourage them to think how to improve it. And there can be a point, John, when you're considering these things where Thanks, Doug. Now that I think about it, maybe I'm going to go to my second idea. So I appreciate that. And I think
Or
that's
Doug,
sort of what
let
we're
me
doing.
just play devil's advocate or
Yeah.
play the role of a student
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
prospective student who's thinking about entering the contest. If I meet only 2 of the 5, should I just give up? Is there a threshold here? Because obviously I'm not going to hit every 5.
No. You're not. There's not going to be a single entry into this contest that hits all 5 perfectly. Not a single entry. But the point though, is if you realize that you're solid in 2 and weak on 3, on the other 3, make the other 3 better. Make the other 3 better. Add a sentence or 2. Add some thought to it. Do some more research. Sometimes what we'll call it in entrepreneurship is de-risking the idea. De-risk it, right? So don't quit. Improve. But there are times though where you can't, and this would let you to recognize that early. Also to help you make investment decisions too, even in the public markets too, against a test like this.
Now, Doug, how did you come up with your litmus test?
Yeah, so like I said, I basically thought to myself, what are the absolute most successful companies in the world? Quickly figured out that they are monopolies and then worked our way back. So it's kind of fun to present it the way I did, without doing the reveal until the end. But I think that's ultimately how to think. I mean, if you want to be outrageously successful, to the point where you entirely own the market, think like that a little bit. I don't necessarily want you to get there, or to think that's all you can do, but that's how you can greatly improve it.
I wonder if you have other tests as well that you spring on your students.
Yeah, we do. So we have tests for everything. We have tests for the market itself to tell if it's a good market. We have tests to tell if your solution is a good solution. We have tests to tell if your team is a good team. So these are fun and helpful, I think, little tools to apply things against. And fun thing about an Olin education, if you will, these are the type of things students write down, if you will, and come back to me and say, hey, Doug, I applied one of your tests out in my job today, whether they're entrepreneurial or not, whether they're consultants, whether they work in a big company. I'm putting this thing to work today. You made me look great in a board meeting today, so yes, I love little tests like this because I just think it's one of our jobs as an educator to make this stuff simple and to make it applicable.
So, Doug, can you talk about recent winners of the contest so that people may get an idea of what kind of ideas at least pass some of the points on the test?
Yeah. So, I'm excited to see what happens when we open this nationally as well. I'm very proud of my students, if you will, but I'm exactly excited to see what else is going on out there. But like this last fall, when we ran this contest at Olin, the big winner was Speak It. Okay, Speak It, which is Speak Information Technology, Speak It. And this is one of my students who is a medical student, took a year off of his medical training to come get his MBA with us. And what he had observed, this goes to the personal familiarity part, he had observed how much time physicians and their helpers spend entering patient information into electronic medical record software, if you will, and it's all the clicks. And he shows, so John, if I interview you as a physician and see how you're doing and all of that, that can sometimes literally generate to 120 clicks to order, 3 tests for you and 3 drugs for you, if you will. And there's a lot of technology that's sort of speech to text, but not as much for speech to click, if you will. So what they're doing here, this is one of our more promising startups, is they've invested in the technology for you to simply plain speak as a physician what it is you're ordering for John, and for it to do all the clicks in the system and to enter it. And, the biggest problem here is not actually time, which is important. Bigger problem here is physician burnout, John. They didn't get into this gig to click 120 times. They got into this gig to have time to listen to you and really understand you and maybe ask you one more question to diagnose something. So that, so that was a recent winner of ours. And, they're number 4 Number 4 is a challenge for them. You know, they have the patent on speech to click, if you will. So they know right away when they look through this. Number 4 is where they need to hang out, need to figure out how to make their solution better than everyone else, how to get to market quickly, and how to create other sort of strategies, if you will, to continue to be number 1. You know, as others try to enter this market. So that's one recent example of a winner for you.
That's great. That's a really good example. And, you know, Doug, we're starting to get questions and we're going to answer them. I wonder if before we go to the questions, you might just give us another recent winner as well.
Yeah. So something more simple than that is you're an athlete, okay, and you're working out, and you want to take some type of energy drink or some type of powder drink that gives you more energy. Okay, so what you resort to is making that pre-energy workout shake, if you will, before you work out. Okay, and then trying to consume it and then trying to wait. And so this particular company is called Lifted Pouches. And what they do actually is they make a pouch. They make a pouch that you can put in your mouth actually and bite down on and chew and suck on and chew on while you're actually working out. So that's actually releasing the energy, if you will, during the actual workout. Because you know, sucking on a bottle or whatever is not possible when you're running or lifting. So it's just another example of sort of the the way that our students and the way that students nationally are going after problems that they have. And you know, this particular person that did this, Derek, is a workout enthusiast, and he's asking himself, why do I have to burn 17-18 minutes before my actual workout mixing this stuff together? How could I be more efficient? So when you start recognizing problems like that, John, in your life and in your hobby, there's a business idea there potentially. And quick and run and get this litmus test and go against it real quick and see if it's something you want to pursue.
Totally. Now, Doug, Carmen is asking, if you have a business that's still in the ideation stage, could you still enter the competition?
Absolutely.
In fact, that's the ideal stage, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great stage to enter. I will tell you though, there's a trick though, even if you're in the idea phase. Okay. So there's something that I will do as a venture capitalist, just to simplify it. We call it the 3 T's, John, which we could have given our webinar on this too. But lots of tests. But this is a team, tech, and traction. And the greatest of these is traction. Okay, so you're like, wait, Doug, you just said I could enter an idea. But if you look at it for a second, what you want to come across in your entry is team. Who are you? Who are you? And how are you an expert on this or related to this? Right. So Speak It, for example, is a medical student, instant credibility. Derek with the Lifted Pouches is an avid workout enthusiast. So who are you? Second one, tech, which answers this question of problem you're solving and how unique your solution is. Okay. But the greatest is traction. So absolutely, being launched and having a revenue would be amazing. Who wouldn't want that? But what you can do on the traction side is go out and talk to customers about your idea, potential customers about your idea, and others about your idea. And I often say in my classes, you know how I can tell if you did it? Because your idea will change. Your idea will improve. So if you can weave through your entry the number of people you have talked to and the initial interest and traction you're getting from the marketplace, adds a credibility to your pitch that catches you up to others that might be further along. So that would be my answer. Absolutely idea, but try to work in that you spent some time researching this and interviewing customers, and you'll do even better, even at the idea phase.
Carmen asks a good follow-up question. He basically says, okay, of the 2 recent winners you mentioned in the conversation here, what stages were their business in when they won?
Idea phase, but with significant customer discovery and a prototype. Okay, and a prototype. And there's this thing, John, in entrepreneurship, it's called MVP, which means minimal viable product. It means getting your idea to the minimal phase in which you can attract a customer. I actually like to argue MVP, minimal viable prototype. What can you do to sketch this out and make it seem real enough that you can get feedback on it? Those types of things help you significantly. So, and you can find really interesting ways to weave that customer discovery, the fact that you're doing that into your entry as well, that adds significant credibility.
And Doug, I know that you will be reading the submissions among others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's right. And I will be applying it to my test, my test here. And I will be looking for those that are serious enough and have expressed that they're going after this and they're willing to talk to people about it. And they have an energy level, that comes across from this. That wasn't just something they quickly did, but this is really a passionate thing that they're going after. So those would be my tips. Not dissimilar to a tip for what you might look like for an application essay as well to a particular university, looking less generic and more specific.
Now, Oscar here is taking your advice to heart because he's asking, is there a book that he can find where the 5 steps in the litmus test are more developed?
Yeah, so there's I have a whole stack of books here that I like to recommend to students. But one in particular is this book here. It's called Testing Business Ideas. And John, I don't know, maybe I used to, I'm going to date myself. I was consider myself the MTV generation, if you will. So we starting out where we didn't like to read, we like to watch. And this book actually is like a picture book, basically, that talks about 50 different ways that you can test a business idea before you launch it. And I highly recommend to my students that we do that. So that's one in particular that I think they might want to take a look at to understand if they might be onto something or not.
And here's another really good question. I know the answer to this, but I'll let you answer it. Can a social impact company based in Nigeria apply?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that all U.S.-based MBA programs enjoy their international students, but we specifically do at Olin. So it's very important to us that this be a global competition, not just a U.S. competition. And I love when number one here, significant problem, has something to do with social impact. I mean, I love it. I think we teach at Olin, I'm sure other schools do too, this new thing, well, not this new thing, but this concept called the triple bottom line, the 3 Ps. So profit has always been there and will always be there and is critical to your sustainability as a business. But the other 2 Ps are people and planet. So we certainly like to ask our students to say, okay, can this be profitable? But also, is this at least making the world a better place for people and a better place for our planet and not worse? So we like those questions up front. And something like this idea gets me excited because it might hit all 3. And those are particularly attractive.
They actually have a scalable model across the entire continent of Africa. So that would make it a big idea, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they have what we like to call an earned revenue stream. Even maybe it's a for-profit company, doesn't matter. The nonprofits can enter this contest as well, as long as there's what's called an earned revenue stream. So it's not just donations that might run it, but there's something attractive enough to make the customer get out their pocketbook, if you will, and spend something. And if it has that, then that's particularly exciting for a contest like this.
And here's another question. And I'm assuming that because the competition is global, all the teammates that you have can be all over the place. So you can have teammates in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, wherever, right?
Absolutely. I lost my teaching assistant, John. He's going into a senior year. This was an undergraduate. I lost him because they raised $1.5 million for their startup. His other 3 co-founders, he met online all over the country, and they worked together to start this business and to raise money. They have seen each other recently. They converged in Canada for a photo, but that's how I expect the world to be, John. And it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the more beautiful things about COVID is that it really has helped connect us in ways that we could only do physically before. So absolutely, and that's the new world. I know, John, you folks on your team are around the world as well,
Yeah.
and it's just the new way of doing things, and it's wonderful.
It really is. Well, I can't wait to start reading these submissions myself and to participate in the judging at the end of the game, but also to see the 2-minute pitch videos of the teams that will be invited to actually submit those elevator pitches. So I want to remind everyone, January 7th is the deadline. So it really takes less than 10 minutes to do that first round entry. But as Doug mentioned, put some thought into this. The more thought you put in, the more likely it is you're going to be among the 10 or 15 that are invited to submit. And then the more research you put in and the clearest thinking that you present is going to really make a difference in whether or not you're chosen among the 3 teams to go to St. Louis and to pitch to us directly in front of a group of judges and to basically compete for that $50,000 prize, which is a good chunk of money to start a business today.
Yeah, it's very generous, and it's something that motivates folks, especially at this early stage in their company. So I think it's fantastic. Also, John, you see my email. Actually, my email's been on the screen the entire time, but I'm one of those folks who actually keeps a clean email box, which means I can invite this stuff because I will respond to it too. So it would be my pleasure to talk to people that might have questions about this contest or Olin or their business idea or whatever they're doing. I love this stuff. I love giving back, and it's my pleasure to engage.
And I think your invitation tells me a lot about the Olin Business School and how accessible the professors are and how helpful they are.
Yes, that's right. I think it's I don't mean to give a commercial for us, but having a smaller class size allows us to get really individualized and know everybody and spend a lot of time with folks, and it's a great model. It's our pleasure. We're lucky to be able to do that.
Well, Doug, thank you for spending your time with us today. I'm telling you, I'm benefiting from this because I'm looking at my own business now and looking at the 5-point litmus test and wondering, okay, where am I weakest and what can I do about it?
What can you do about it? That's right. Yep. Awesome. Love it, John. This was fun. Right. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So for all of you out there, go to our website, enter the contest. If anything, you'll have a lot of fun doing it. It's always good to put something down on paper, incidentally, to get your ideas in a place where you can improve them, because this is what this is all about, really. It's not that you're going to throw an idea out and it's going to catch fire. It's about throwing an idea out that can be scaled, thought about, improved, refined, pivoted upon, because that's the nature of entrepreneurship, right, Doug?
That's it. That's exactly right. And then I'll end with one thing, John. Even though I have this test and all that stuff, do you know who's actually smarter than your entrepreneurship professor and smarter than John? Even the customer. The customer.
Yes.
Go out and talk to the customer. It would trump anything that I might say to you or ideas. Oh, really, Doug? Well, I talked to 100 people and this is what they think. That is the answer. Trumps VCs, everyone else. So customer is the key, John, to all of this.
Because, one of the things you find is that some of the greatest and most successful ideas in business were often presented to deaf ears. People never thought that they could amount to anything, and yet they did. Mm-hmm. And while that is true, there are a lot of dumb ideas also out there. So I'm not going to say that every idea someone has is likely to be the next Netflix or Facebook, because there are probably more dumb ideas chasing money than smart ideas. But oftentimes the smart ideas are not easily recognized as smart ideas.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's because the person listening to them can't see it. It's mostly because they may not be a customer for it. So yeah. That's why I was hinting the trick is go out and talk to customers and present the fact that you have and that they're excited and they're interested and they can't wait until we launch. That's exciting for a VC. It's exciting when a VC would have this problem themselves, but it's really exciting when you show that level of effort and data, if you will, and that's really key.
Doug, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Remember, enter WashU Olin's Big Idea Bounce. You can win $50,000 for your idea. And more than that, some great advice and just basically the fun of it, the fun of competing and the fun of us writing about you if you make that first cut. We'll interview you. We'll talk about your idea. Even if you don't survive to the final round of the 3 teams, you may attract some attention from others, angel investors or VCs, or just other classmates here or there to make your idea work anyway. Doug, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.